In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the semicircle kind of block here, and I'm going to look at helping you kind of just set this up. So one thing that I'm going to take a look at first with my block is what would be the best front view. The best front view for this would be the view that where we see this circular shape, this kind of half circle shape or semicircle shape, rather than maybe picking something like this. You know, it doesn't really sit real well like that. It's really going to sit real well on that flat bottom like this and kind of look, when we get it done, it's going to look like that. So as I go through, a lot of the same principles like what we did with the cylinder are going to be applied. One thing I need to do is measure this out. This is going to be, looks like on the measurement here that I get, I'm sitting at about 1 3/8. So I'm just a little over 1 3/8. So I'm going to put this down as I go to create my sketch. I'm going to go to 1 1/4. So here I go, and I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 grid squares, which would be 1, and then 1 more grid square to give me for the 1 1/4. Alright, next thing I'm going to take a look at is going to be the radius. So, or sometimes we can also refer to, in this case, this will also be the height. So if you take a look, the radius here, as I see, is going to be, as I measure this, is going to be somewhere along 11/16. So 11/16, I could also see, maybe even, looks like 11/16, pretty close to me. So that would end up, as you take a look at that, we're going to end up going to only have about 3/4 of an inch to be represented. I think that's what I'm going to do on this one. When I look at the height of this block, it's closest to 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and put in there 3/4. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to go ahead and box out the front. Again, we're going to use the box method. The depth on this semicircular part is 1 1/8. So we're going to go to be 4 grid squares. And then we'll make them connect. Alright, this part here is going to be fairly simple as far as going through and getting the shape, you know, to be represented. So same kind of idea is we know we're going to be starting here. We know that this kind of slopes up and comes around. So this is about 5 grid squares deep. This is only one, or wide, I should say. And when I go and look at this along this top edge, I'm going to count 1, 2, and then we're about halfway between 2 and 3. I'm going to make a little mark. And that mark is meaning that the top of the arc, the very top of the arc, needs to be touching that particular point. So I'm going to make that little tick mark there to kind of help that out. And what you can kind of do is you can kind of see that if you take some light lines, I'm going to do an X across the front, and I'm going to kind of about 2/3 away from the center, and here, I'm going to mark those little tick marks there to kind of help me to make sure that my arc is going to come up and it's going to hit those, going to hit the top and pass through those. Alright, and there's going to be that semicircle. Now what ends up happening as well is as I go back, so here you're going to take lines to go back. This line's going to come all the way up here to the front. I'm going to darken that in. And the same kind of thing is going to happen on the back side. So on the back side, where that tick mark is for the top, I'm going to mark it there as well. And then I'm going to make sure that my arc is going to come up and come back like this. Very similar to how we did on the front. And you can see where they're going to connect. It's almost going to kind of look almost like a little bit of a square corner on the back. But that's just kind of how the isometric is going to make it look. And there would end up being my semicircular piece. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to erase my little box that I made. So that way we can see that a little bit better. And my X in the middle. And there would be our semicircular shape. As far as dimensions go, here, just a reminder, we were looking at 1 inch and 1 3/8. So I'll put that in. The height on this one, so is going to be 11/16. And then we had 1 1/8 on the depth. And there we'll go through and provide our shape. Our front view gets a little bit of shading. The rounded edge is going to see no shading. It's going to stay white. And we can go through and shade our sketch just a little bit. Okay, and there we'll finish out the semicircular shape for our construction blocks.